Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CBC Cape Breton mayoralty debate for the CBRM Vote 2020. My name is Steve Sutherland. I'm the host of Information Morning on CBC Radio in Cape Breton, and I am pleased and honored to be your moderator here tonight. This is a unique year, obviously, a unique year in many ways, given the fact that for the first time we don't have an in-person audience here tonight. But thanks for joining us in the live stream, live from the Membertou Trade and Convention Center here on Wednesday night, September the 30th. Also unique in that you will have no fewer than 6 new faces around the table in the Cape Breton Regional Municipal Council this year. For the first time in a long time, there's a wide field that's open. A lot of new faces and the new composition of council will be guaranteed since there are at least 6 incumbents who are not reoffering. Also a unique year in that this is the first year in many, many years that you have this much variety in the race for mayor. And we are honored to be able to play some role in the important decision you're going to be making before the evening of October the 17th. We're going to dive in just a second with the fun part of the evening, but first a little bit of business to take care of. Here's how it works. In the weeks leading up to this debate, we solicited questions from voters throughout the CBRM, both through CBC Radio and through online and social media. We also at CBC made a special effort to reach out to members of communities that are sometimes underrepresented at events like this, things like the First Nations community and the Black communities. We received dozens upon dozens of questions to pose to the candidates. So I hope you'll be understanding and patient when you may not hear your question being asked. But what we try to do is select a representative group of questions that touched on many different facets of public life and public policy, both social and fiscal, in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality as it pertains to the job of mayor. There's no way with 6 candidates in 2 hours that we can get to everything on the agenda, but what we're going to do is try to give you some idea where each of the 6 people on the stage are coming from tonight that will help inform the decision that you're making starting on October 7th when online voting begins. So here's how it works. We're going to pose a question, and each question will be answered by all 6 of your candidates. The questions will sometimes, I'll read maybe a couple of varieties of comments we received from different voters to give an idea of the thinking behind the question, but I'll always finish with a specific question that'll inspire debate among these candidates. Each of your 6 candidates, in a random order determined by draw ahead of time, will get 1 minute to answer each of the questions, after which we're followed by 3 minutes of open discussion and debate, moderated by me. Now, when I say they get precisely 1 minute, I mean precisely 1 minute. So when you see my hand go up, that means the candidate has 15 seconds to finish his or her comments, after which time they'll hear from my little bell friend, which means it's time to stop talking, and then we move on to the next candidate. In those 3 minutes of open discussion and debate, conversation is directed by me. When we finish those 3 minutes, we'll move on to the next question. And of course, the only way this is going to work with 6 people in 2 hours, in maybe 9, 10, or 11 questions through the course of the evening, is if everybody accepts that no one's going to get to say everything they want to say, that no one's going to talk over each other because no one can hear what you're saying, and you respect my authority as the moderator, which is the only time my authority is respected. So we asked that of all the candidates, and we had buy-in earlier this evening. So we are live streaming on the CBC Nova Scotia landing page, on the CBC Cape Breton Facebook page. We will post this online for everyone to see and to hear afterwards. And of course, as always, we'll be broadcasting excerpts on CBC Radio on Information Morning and Main Street, on 92.1 FM in Sydney, and on frequencies throughout the island for the next couple of weeks leading up to the election. So, without further delay, let's get down to the business of the evening. Your candidates, in order of their speaking for the first question and in an order determined by random draw earlier tonight, are Amanda McDougall on the left of the screen, Archie McKinnon, Chris Abbas going left to right, John Strasser, incumbent Cecil Clark, and Kevin McCackern. And we'll be rotating through that order for the course of the evening. We're going to go for about 2 hours, so we'll be letting you go at around 9 o'clock tonight on September the 30th. Our first question is, tell us what it is about you and your background that makes you think you would make a good mayor. 1 minute each of the candidates, starting with Amanda McDougall. Amanda.
Thank you. After 4 years sitting on council, I have proven to the residents of District 8 and the wider CBRM I am ready to take on the position of mayor of the CBRM. During those 4 years, I heard over and over again, we need to do things and make decisions that are going to keep young families and bring young people back to our island. Well, funny enough, I am one of those young families, and I am here living my life on this island. I chose to live and work here in the CBRM after studying and traveling abroad. I worked hard, most times holding down multiple jobs just to stake out a life and career here. I clearly have the energy and experience to do this. I'm growing my family here and feeling very blessed to do so. So obviously, I have a stake in our future and our municipality, and I am committed to doing this job 100% of the time to the very best of my ability. I absolutely love our home, and I cannot wait to serve you as your next mayor.
Very good, Amanda McDougall. Thank you very much. Next up, 1 minute to Archie McKinnon. Tell us a bit about you and your background and what it is you think would make you a good mayor.
Well, I'll tell you, starting off, first thing's honesty. You know, that's what I'm going to bring to politics here in Cape Breton, honesty. I've been involved all my life trying to help people that are hurting. Been very much involved with youth organizations on the north side, senior organizations, been very much involved with food banks, anything I possibly can to help people. I want to show people that we can change politics around here. We can put good people in that are going to stand up and fight for the things that we need. I'm not going to make a rosy picture that make everything look like it's wonderful down here. There's too much hurt down here. There's too much pain. There's a lot of suffering, and we need somebody with a voice, and I want to be that voice. I want to be the voice of the people here in Cape Breton.
Archie McKinnon, thank you very much. Chris Abbas.
Well, thank you very much for letting me be here tonight, Steve. I'd just like to say that I'm glad to be at a real debate. And to tell you a little bit about myself, well, I was born and raised right here in Cape Breton. I love it here. Spent most part of my life here, excluding a few years being away. But I'll tell you, I know what it's like to not have a job and to look for a job. I know what it's like to try to pay outrageous taxes here. And I especially know what it's like to have to move away so that you can survive. Now, I've been an employer and an employee right here in Cape Breton, and I have a very good knowledge of a cost-effective work environment. I'm assertive, I'm outspoken, I'm nonpartisan, and I will not be intimidated by political party influence. Now, also they tell us that Cape Breton is the best-kept secret in the tourism world, and I hope to change that. Thank you.
Very good, Chris Abbas. Thank you very much. John Strasser, a minute from you on what it is about you and your background that makes you think you'd make a good mayor.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of Steve and the crew at CBC and the Membertou Trade and Convention Center for coordinating this event. And a special thanks to all of the paving crews of the CBRM who are desperately trying to impress the voters that CBRM success is measured in the amount of asphalt laid just prior to an election. Every one of you should, and I emphasize the word should, have an input into where the CBRM is going, and all of you should have access to an annual report card that tells you, the voter, how the administration is doing. A report card that is transparent, that is accountable, and is open to criticism from all. Why am I here? I'm a pier boy, married to Gail, a shipyarder. I watched the CBRM go into decline. I don't like it. We need more input from everyone. I have a proven business background and a doctorate degree in engineering.
All right, John, we'll end it there for now. Thank you very much. We hit the clock. Cecil Clark, minor adjustment of the question. What is it about you and your background that makes you think you have been a good mayor?
Well, these last 8 years, I've been honored, Steve, to serve as everyone's mayor here in the CBRM. I inherited a very difficult situation, and I've done my job faithfully to help. We've resolved many of those issues and are working hard every day to help our communities recover. We made tough decisions for the right reasons. Reducing our debt by over $40 million and securing a rainy day fund isn't just a great accomplishment, but an investment in our future to help us when we need it the most. This was possible by taking politics out of the equation and making people the top priority. I've led the way to achieve more for the CBRM. More clean, safe waters, more buildings, more sidewalks, more roads, more transit, more investment, and more confidence. Now I want to build on our success. It's never been more critical to have an experienced, steady hand at the wheel as we work through COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges it poses. I'll help guide the new council to bring us through to the other side of this crisis and recover stronger, more united as a municipality.
All right, thank you very much. That's your minute. Kevin McEachern, what about you?
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. I am new to politics, as everyone here knows. I am myself. I be myself. My background, I'm a businessman. I've worked here. I've been an employee here like Chris has himself. I do employ a large number of the students here. I know what it's like for people starting off in this city to try to get started. I work with people on a daily basis here. It's just steady working, trying to get things done.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin McEachern.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move into 3 minutes of open discussion and conversation on this point, starting with Amanda McDougall. We'll remind everybody with 6 people, 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Keep your thoughts to 1 point at a time, and please follow my direction. Let me know if you want in on the conversation. Starting with you, Amanda.
Thank you, Steve. I think what I'm hearing a lot on this stage is I, but in council, it is a team. That council that is going to be taking office on the 17th needs to begin unified and have a strategic plan similar to what John was talking about, so there can be an annual report each year.
All right, Archie McKinnon, you wanted in on this?
Yes, I'd just like to know from the people that were in power that maybe telling us about your record, you can tell us all the things you want, but I mean, you're not talking about the things we have, poverty, suffering, poor road conditions. Don't be making it a rosy picture here. People on this island know what's going on.
Cecil Clark?
We know tough times, but we also know for the first time in a generation, we're finally moving forward and we finally have our feet under us. And now more than ever, we need leadership that has experience. And I brought that fairly to the table and know that with a brand new council of many new faces, I can have the experience and the ability to help guide it forward and the team. And I've always been fair as mayor, as presiding officer to all members.
All right, Chris Avis.
I'd just like to address Mr. Clark here. I mean, he keeps talking about building on our successes. I really don't know which municipality he's living in because it's not this one. That's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Did you have a specific?
No, sir. No, he's going around town. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's been going around and taking credit for everything that's going on. He's standing in front of the NSCC talking like he had something to do with that.
All right, we're going to go to
so.
Kevin McEachern, then Cecil, and then Archie. Kevin?
Well, I'm not the type of person to go asking, pointing fingers at people, stuff like that. I want to work together to get things going forward.
All right, Cecil, did you want to respond?
When you talk about NSCC, it was all about facilitating and reaching out and having the president and the principal come to your office, open the dialogue with the province, and being able to bring people to the table, to bring something forward to council to facilitate, provincial government making decisions, and the CBRM helping make it happen.
All right, we're going to go to Archie, and then John Strasser, and then Amanda. Archie?
I was just wondering with all the child poverty, maybe in some of those private meetings you had, you could have sat down and thought about wasting $140 in increases for yourselves and took that $140,000 and put it towards our child poverty.
John Strasser.
I have a question rather than a statement. I am under the impression that there is a file that the mayor has that he alone controls on the container terminal, and that the council don't even know how much is budgeted in that file. So I'd like the clarification before we start tonight that is the case.
Do you want to respond to that, Cecil Clark?
Well, clearly, council gave me the opportunity and asked me to take and lead the council file. All the expenses associated with that are presented, so the listeners need to know we had the opportunity. When it came forward to council, if they wanted to take that authority away, council would not move a motion.
All right, we're going to finish up with Amanda McDougall very briefly, please.
Thank you. So I think it's very important that going forward with our new council that we ensure that we're not taking credit for projects that are happening in our community because of our community stakeholders. Yes, we did agree to land transfers and sales for NSCC, but I don't think it's fair to say that it is our business.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you all very much for answering that question. A good start. Thank you for respecting the moderation of the conversation. You are listening and you are watching the live stream of the CBRM Mayoralty Debate, sponsored by CBC Cape Breton. We're on the CBC Nova Scotia Facebook page, live on Wednesday night, the last night of September. We're also on the CBC Cape Breton Facebook page, and you're also listening online later on at 92.1 FM. Your candidates are Amanda McDougall, Archie McKinnon, Chris Avis, John Strasser, Cecil Clark, and Kevin McEachern. All right, everybody have a little breath there. Next up, I'm going to direct the attention of our candidates to the screens at the front of the stage for a question from our host community of Membertou First Nation.
Good evening. My name is Senator Dan Christmas from Membertou. What do you think is the most effective way for the CBRM to work in partnership with the two First Nation communities within its jurisdiction, Eskasoni and Membertou? What do you think is the biggest opportunity for the CBRM in working with our First Nation communities? And how do you think our First Nation communities can be better represented in the municipality?
Thank you, Senator Dan Christmas, for starting us off in the discussion this evening. So we're going to go to Archie McKinnon first. The idea here is Senator Christmas is looking at wondering, what would you do to work in partnership with Membertou and Eskasoni? What's the most significant opportunity you see in that relationship? And what are your thoughts on better representing First Nations communities in the affairs of the CBRM, through the municipality and as mayor? So on the relationship between the CBRM and First Nations communities, 1 minute from each of your candidates, beginning with Archie McKinnon. Archie.
I'll bring back some honesty again. You know, I've been very much involved most of my life in recreation with the First Nations people. I want the First Nations people to know that I was one of the last senior hockey teams to play with the First Nations people. I've been very much involved with them over the years, playing in the Maritime Horseshoe Pitching Championships. I was an ex-horseshoe and Maritime Horseshoe Pitching champ. I'm involved with the First Nations people. They're part of our family here. If they live here, it doesn't matter where you live. Even the people outside of Cape Breton, they're all important to me, and that's what we need. We need everybody on the same wavelength and all playing together as one team.
All right, thank you very much, Archie McKinnon. Keeping in mind that Senator Christmas is looking for direction from you on what you would do to build the relationships between the CBRM and the First Nations communities within its borders. Also, what opportunities you see there to enrich that relationship. Chris Avis, 1 minute.
Thank you, Steve. Well, as mayor, my door would always be open to both Membertou and Eskasoni and any community for that matter. We really need more collaboration with the two First Nations communities. As a matter of fact, I lived in Eskasoni for about a year, and I have a pretty good idea, or no, excuse me, I have a little idea of what life is like there. I only lived there for a year. And as far as business goes, I think we could take a few tips, especially from Membertou here, which is probably one of the most successful First Nations communities in the country. Other than that, my door would always be open to everybody. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Chris Avis. John Strasser, on the relationship between the CBRM and its First Nations populations, and specifically its relationship between Eskasoni and Membertou.
I think if we get used to as a group of people and treating each other with respect, we'll be much further ahead than highlighting the differences. What Membertou has done in the grounds that surround us is outstanding. It should be looked at as a model for many places. So I think respect, treating each other with dignity, and it should be fairly easy for the Membertou and Eskasoni communities to work with the administration at CBRM to take a look at what they can do to move the agenda forward.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, any specifics from any of the candidates are welcome on potential for opportunity. Cecil Clark, 1 minute.
Thank you very much. I was very honored to be part of bringing together the Tri-Council, the first, where the CBRM and our two First Nations sit around the same table and talk about collective interests, opportunities, and challenges we face. A lot of people don't know the strong partnership we have, providing fire, police, water, sewer services as true partners. We're working through things like how do we provide better transit and connecting our communities. And when we look at the port development, for the port board, we made sure there was First Nation representatives on our board, and it was a voluntary thing. We have a 5% offset for the second berth that provided $1 million, and it was not a token, it was real employment and opportunities. We've been talking at the table. We sit with our police and staff about vulnerable populations, common addiction, street issues. and believing in that reconciliation is action, not just words around it, and that's what I've committed to.
All right, Cecil Clark, thank you very much. 1 minute from Kevin McEachern.
Yes, thank you. The first thing I want to make sure is that the treaties are all upheld, especially in the CBRM. Membertou and Escazoni are very, very great places. Membertou here, I'm here daily. The transit service that Cecil talked about here, there is none in Membertou. The closest bus we can get here is either at the hospital or at the foot of the hill. That has to change. We've got to get the bus services running through Membertou. There shouldn't be borders. We're all one community. We should all work together in every aspect of everything. For First Nations workers, I'd love to see more First Nations workers working with the CBRM in all projects.
You have a little bit of time left. Do you see a mechanism by which you can make that happen?
Like I said, I'm just getting started on it. I'm working with the people with everything I can do for everyone. I've got a lot of people coming talking to me about it. I'm going to see what I can do about it.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin McEachern. On the relationship between the CBRM and its First Nations populations, and specifically opportunities to build a relationship with Escazoni and Membertou, Amanda McDougall.
Thank you, Steve. I think the first thing we need to do is increase our standard for consultation. I spoke to a former staff member of the HRM who is an Indigenous engagement advisor. That is a position that's responsible for colonial audits, providing cultural training, developing Indigenous consultation frameworks. We need that in the CBRM. I'd like to do that by taking the 2 positions that were appointed in the mayor's office out and investing in an elder and residence program and that Indigenous engagement advisor. One of our biggest opportunities is to learn about the business model here in Membertou and Escazoni, and that is the Membertou corporate. How can we replicate something like that so we can also replicate the business development and the growth in the communities that we are seeing in Membertou and Escazoni?
All right, thank you very much, Amanda McDougall. So on the subject of better representing First Nations communities in the affairs of the CBRM and relationship with those communities, we have 3 minutes of open discussion and debate among your candidates, starting with Archie McKinnon to start us off. Anybody who wants in, get my attention. Okay.
First
Archie.
of all, I'm going to tell First Nations people I'll be the first mayor. I'll be the first mayor that'll promote and make sure that people right across Canada know about the poverty in the community. I'll want Mr. Christmas to be part of what I'm going to be involved in, is fighting for people down in this island, and that's what's wrong down here. We've got people going around giving us a rosy picture for this island, and it's nothing but poverty, and it has to stop.
Cecil Clark.
Well, Dan asked about the question, Steve, about biggest opportunity, and one of the things both First Nations who have been recognized for their business acumen is their investment in equity positions in the port, on both sides of Sydney Harbour, in cold storage. Escazoni and Membertou have been leaders, and I'm very proud to work with them, and we need to keep building on that opportunity. When we talk about transit, we are working with Escazoni on their plan, and we need Indigenous Affairs Canada to work with our communities because we operate on an area rate basis.
All right, Amanda McDougall, and if anybody else wants in, get my attention. Amanda.
Thank you. I think another point that we have to pay attention to are the 7 different calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation report. That report linked the municipalities to 7 particular actions, and so far, from what I have experienced in council, we have not implemented any of them. So that is a priority.
All right, Archie McKinnon, and then Cecil, and then if anybody else wants in, and then Chris Abbas.
Yeah,
Archie.
it's nice to hear these elected officials talk about something they've had 4 years to do. They've done absolutely nothing in the last 4 years, and now all of a sudden, give me 4 more years, and we're going to change that.
So very briefly, is there a missed opportunity that you would act on?
Most definitely there's a missed opportunity. Like I said, these people need somebody to stand up and fight for them, not make a rosy picture for Cape Breton. That's
Cecil,
not what
and
they're
then-
looking for.
Okay, Cecil, and then Chris. Cecil?
I think we've had a phenomenal relationship, and it's a direct phone-to-phone amongst our elected leadership. But I look at the library that Dan is also providing consultation on. When we look at a new central library, reconciliation and inclusion of Mi'kmaq history on our waterfront, inclusion of the value of that culture in our community, and that is a tangible thing that we are participating in as a municipality.
Chris Abbas?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I would just like to ask Councillor McDougall and Mayor Clark, if these situations they have the solutions for now, where were they 4 years ago when we needed all this collaboration with Membertou?
And is there an
Escazoni?
opportunity that you would like to take action on as a candidate?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, sir. I'd like to see Membertou and Escazoni have more collaboration with mayor and council, more talk back or back and forth between mayor and council and First Nations leaders.
Okay, we're going to finish with Cecil and Amanda. Cecil?
And I'd welcome the CBC talking to Chief Terry Paul and Chief Leroy Denny and asking about the value of the relationship we have, which I believe is very solid and progressive.
All right, Amanda McDougall, finally.
I do agree that the relationship with the chiefs is very solid, but we only received the Truth and Reconciliation report not even 2 years ago, so we are now able to implement those.
All right, we end discussion at that point. Thank you all very much. And a reminder to all the candidates, if you would like to get involved in the conversation, make sure to get my attention. Otherwise, we'll be able to give minutes more time to other people. All right, folks, take a breath. Up next, a topic that's showing up in the campaign literature of a number of candidates for councillor in this election. It's showing up in candidates' roundtables in the districts in our program on Information Morning, in several of your campaign literature. And the wording is one submitted by Glenn Muse, voter Glenn Muse, who himself, you may recall, was a candidate for the office you all seek in the first ever CBRM election 25 years ago this year, when we had almost as many candidates as tonight. Here's our question for you, and we're going to start with Chris Abbas on this point. Where do you stand on the question of equalization? So on funding for the municipality, on your relationship with the province, the conversation about equalization and your take on it. 1 minute to Chris Abbas.
Thank you, Steve. Equalization's a funny duck. We've been debating it and arguing it for over 20 years now, and depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different take on it. The bottom line here is that the province has been shortchanging us on this money, and we're going to need somebody up there in Halifax that's not going to be intimidated by the province, not going to be intimidated by any of these high rollers telling us, go sit down and be quiet. It's not going to happen, sir. As far as the numbers on it, if I was to sit here and tell you, oh, we get 15 million, but we pay 20, to tell you the truth, I really don't understand that, but I do understand we're getting shortchanged, and I'm the guy who's not going to let it happen anymore. Thank you.
All right, Chris Abbas on equalization. John Strasser.
I think the imbalance in terms of the money from the federal government that arrives in Nova Scotia each year, Cape Breton has been shortchanged for a number of years. I've been at many of the meetings. I've sat down and talked to Russ Green and Father Almiron. I think their numbers are correct. I think what hasn't been done here, it has not become an actionable item, and I think it should be taken to a court of law and decided once and for all.
And what about the case the CBRM took to the court several years ago?
Well, as I understand it, it was taken by John Morgan, and then it was pulled back. It never got to a final conclusion, or so I think it has to be taken to the point where one way or another it's yes or no.
My understanding is the court at the time said it was a matter for political discussion, not for the courts to decide, unless it was brought by the province or the feds. All right, Cecil Clark, 1 minute on equalization.
Well, Steve, we all know that we've been trying to get our fair share and supports for our region and deal with the gaps we've had here in our community, and they've been real. We've asked for an audit of the municipality. We got a viability study. We're acting on that study. But what we had before I was elected was 12 years of going in one direction and it not producing any outcomes. Since then, it's about negotiating and getting better outcomes. This year alone, we have the most construction and the most agreements we've ever had, and we've been able to do it by getting the provincial government to be there with the federal government to take over $30 million of burden away from the taxpayers here. The Premier in 2014 had frozen the amount because it kept going down, that we at least have the 15 million coming in. It was about taking a new approach, and we're getting real results as a result of working at the table and not locking a door on opportunity.
All right, Cecil Clark, thank you very much. 1 minute to Kevin McCacker. The question is, where do you stand on the question of equalization and how you interpret that? Kevin?
I personally feel that the CBRM has been shortchanged drastically. I think it's time for us to stand together and demand that the feds divide these payments to each municipality instead of coming to the provinces. The federal government should do this for us. The exact amount of money, I'm not sure of, because there's so many different people using different formulas. I know it's a lot. Everybody knows it's a lot. We've got to get this money back into the CBRM and all municipalities in Nova Scotia. The feds are the ones that can do this. We have to stand together, scream at them, make them divide it up, and pay it out to each municipality separately, not to the province.
So because you have a little time left, what's your understanding of the mechanism by which this municipality is being shortchanged?
It's crazy. Like I said, I've been home for 5 years now. I've been talking to a lot of people in my community here. They're telling me about all the different aspects of the stuff that's being shortchanged, the poverty in the area. It's crazy. Like,
All right, Kevin McCackard, thank you very much. On equalization, Amanda McDougall.
Thank you, Steve. We have to change the approach that we're taking when it comes to getting our fair share of equalization. I think at the bare minimum, we need to bring all of our island municipalities and First Nations together to help talk about this and talk about the inequities that are being felt across the board. We also need to reach out to the municipalities across Nova Scotia. We've seen it at the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities. We are not alone in this, but we're fighting this with only one voice. That needs to change. In terms of the gap between what we are receiving in equalization payments and what we have to pay the province for their responsibilities, such as education, healthcare, and corrections, that needs to be a priority. That's a quick fix and low-hanging fruit. We cannot be locked into $15 million while we're paying almost $22 million in those payments.
All right, Amanda McDougall, thank you very much. Archie McKinnon on equalization.
Well, let me tell you my stand on it. $247 million this year taken from this province. I'm not going to be like John Morgan if I'm elected mayor. I'm going to ask the people on this island to rally behind me, and if we have to, we'll elect every elected official on this island to fight for what we deserve, our equalization money. It's our own money. And we're not going to spend millions of dollars. We're going to use politics, the same thing as they've used, to keep that money from us. We're going to use politics, and we're going to use it to get it back, and this mayor is going to be the one to do it.
And because you have a little extra time, Archie, just very briefly, what is the money you're going to get? What is our money?
$247 million was taken from us this year. Now, with this COVID and pandemic we got here, can you imagine what we could do after this was over if we got our $247 million for this year?
You're talking about the entire federal transfer to the province of Nova Scotia.
Yes, that's, I think it's around 21 point something percent of what's sent to the province is for Cape Breton Island.
All right, we continue the discussion now with 3 minutes on your stand on equalization. Might be helpful to get your understanding of what that word means to you and how you're going to act on it. We'll have an exchange among all the candidates for 3 minutes, starting with Chris Abbas. Chris.
Okay. Councillor McDougall has just said that we all, the communities and municipalities, need to work together to do this. I have to strongly disagree with each community, each municipality has its own needs, its own fiscal responsibilities. If we try to work together with this, it's just not going to work. As well, you know, we can't use equalization, as important as it is. We can't use it as a reason not to explore other policies and other sources of revenue.
All right, Cecil Clark and then Amanda McDougall. Anyone else want in? Cecil?
So Glenn Muse asked about the relationship with the province, and that's really about working with them to facilitate. They made decisions around healthcare. They've made decisions around education. Our choice as a municipality is to work with them, oppose them, or actually create opportunities, and that's what we're doing. Over $1 billion of provincial money will go into buildings, creating jobs, and for the first time in my lifetime, young people will have the choice to stay here at home. That is something that the relationship building does about opening doors, not slamming them shut.
And to clarify briefly, do you believe that the CBRM deserves a bigger chunk of literally the federal equalization that gets paid to the province?
We need a bigger chunk of money from the province for the core needs and gaps in our municipality.
Amanda McDougall?
Thank you, Steve. The intention of equalization payments is to bring the level of service for residents up to a level that is fair. I don't think it's the proper thing for a mayor to do to spend their time going out and trying to get candidates for federal positions and provincial positions. I would rather spend my time looking at things like affordable housing, looking at things like more infrastructure money for wastewater. Those are the levels of service that we need to increase.
Archie McKinnon and then Chris Abbas.
Well, let me tell you, Amanda, $247 million, I'm sure we can build a few affordable homes with that. We've got seniors out here that are deciding on whether they feed themselves or they go without heat to pay property taxes. With an equalization payment of $247 million, maybe we can reduce taxes for seniors that are on low income and not have to even pay taxes.
Chris Abbas.
Yes, thank you. Councillor McDougall said that, you know, Councillor McDougall said that we were, I'm terribly sorry. Terribly sorry.
That's okay. It's
I'll pass just for a
intense to
moment.
roll with it. John or
Sorry.
Kevin, you want to get in before Cecil? John or Kevin, anything? John Strasser, very briefly, we're running out of time.
A little bit of clarification from the mayor. The equalization payments that we're now getting, I'm under the impression prior to tonight that your position is that we are not owed anything from either the federal or provincial government. So just a point of clarity so that everybody is on the same page. Do you believe we are being shortchanged on the equalization payments that are coming from the federal government to the provincial government?
Last word to Cecil Clark, this will be it.
And again, I would say to Glenn Muse with his good question is that's why I've been at the table getting new dollars that we haven't had before. 58 million and renegotiated for Sydney West, 97 million for Glace Bay other wastewaters, and $8 million for more roads. Those are new dollars that we didn't have to put taxpayers' money in for.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much for the discussion, and thanks to Mr. Muse for the question. You're listening to CBC, and you're watching us live streaming from Membertou tonight for the mayoralty debate for the CBRM vote in 2020. I'm your moderator, Steve Sutherland. We're here with all 6 candidates in the CBRM live streaming on the CBC Nova Scotia Facebook page and the CBC Nova Scotia landing page and the CBC Cape Breton Facebook page. Thanks for joining us this evening, and thanks very much to all of our candidates for being here. So up next, we are going to stay with the numbers for a question on municipal taxation. As you could probably empathize, we had a lot of questions on municipal taxation and the tax cap. But the sentiment is well captured by a submission from CBRM voter James Forsey. And I'll read a bit of his preamble here. He says, I've attended a number of budget consultation meetings in the CBRM. One issue I raise every year is the injustice in our tax structure under our provincially regulated cap assessment process. Continually, I heard of intentions to create a charter, but this has been the talk for 8 years now, and still our taxes go up, and there have been no changes. The municipality has also applied varying tax rates to various communities throughout the CBRM, so the CBRM has the ability to manage the rate of tax applied to the capped assessment laid out by the province. All the while, says James, over the past 8 years, I paid triple the tax that my neighbor paid, who has the same size home and the same services. This tax structure is not sustainable, not good for economic growth, and divisive. So this question to our candidates, beginning with John Strasser, the question from James, in the next 4 years, what specific steps will you take to reform our tax structure? What steps will you take to address the provincial cap assessment program and apply a new municipal tax rate which is fair to the citizens of the CBRM? So on the tax rate, tax structure, and on the tax cap, 1 minute from each of the candidates, beginning with you, John Strasser.
Thank you, James, for the question. There's no doubt that the tax structure as it currently exists is nothing short of crazy. The value that we have for the homes in the area should be based on a value that makes sense. And when you start to cap homes, you get into exactly where James is saying. The new homes is a higher rate. You have to move that to an equitable situation. You have to do it as quick as possible. And in 4 years, you should be able to do that. Have to be careful and in terms of explaining it to the people, but it's not equitable now.
All right, John Strasser, thank you very much. Cecil Clark on taxes and the tax cap.
Well, as James would know from attending the sessions and actually contributing and talking about his passion about the impact on young people and families, there's also an equally other passionate side of it, the people that don't want it removed. And what we don't have right now is a provincial legislature that will take the leadership to do this by all parties coming together. The Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities have asked for that to be the case. The parties say yes, they will come to this. It is something the legislature has to move on. In the meantime, we have to look at other measures in the short term, whether that is incentives, adjusting. We do have new revenue streams coming in from deed transfer tax, new construction. So we're going to have, as a new council, say, before the government makes any changes, and we keep lobbying, all municipalities are lobbying for this, we have to look at what we do at the local level to provide relief. And the reality is, during this mandate of the municipality, there is no going to be removal of the cap, so we have to work within that reality right now.
All right, Cecil Clark, thank you very much. On taxes, the tax structure, and the provincial assessment cap. Kevin McCacker.
Well, in my personal opinion and my personal experience with the taxes here in CBRM, they're crazy, right out to lunch. It should go by property valuation, the size of the home, the size of the lot. I'm not sure how they're working it out right now, but I've got different lots that are, one lot that's smaller than the other, and the taxes are higher, different area. It's crazy. We have to work to try to figure this out. We've got to get the provincial government working with us down here. We've got to get the municipality working together to get these taxes cut down.
Do you have an alternative for phasing out the tax cap that would still protect those people who are paying less tax under the cap?
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not very familiar with the tax cap down here. I'm still working on it. Like I said, I am a taxpayer here myself. I'm just seeing what it is, talking with people here, and trying to work with people. We'll get this done.
Okay, Kevin McCacker, thank you very much. Amanda McDougall, 1 minute.
Thank you. And I think the point was already made that we need to get the authority to make decisions for ourselves in our municipality. We can talk about the fact that the cap is creating this unfair cycle of taxation for new home buyers, not just seniors, not just young people, not just young people, but seniors who are looking to kind of get a smaller home, live a more comfortable life, are realizing that they're actually paying more taxes in that smaller home than they are in the bigger home that they just tried to cut down from. We had 2 of 3 parties in the legislature ready to move forward with a very well-researched formula that had a slow phase-in over 10 years, low-income protection, spike protection. We need to keep on the province. We have no authority to make these decisions. As much as we yell at it and as much as we scream at it, they need to be accountable for the fact that we have no authority.
All right, Amanda McDougall, thank you very much. Archie McKinnon on the tax cap and on the tax structure in the CBRM.
I certainly agree. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's impossible to remove the cap off the taxes here now. The system that's in place is ridiculous. And I mean, I guess we lean back and we look, the elected officials that have been there for years, they're going to change it now. They've done nothing for the last 4 years and they want to change it again now. This time, give me 4 more and we'll change it. Look, we need people in there that are going to do the right thing. And if we're going to restructure things, let's restructure it with a full council and not a dictator, somebody that's trying to push something through. It'll be a full council if I'm the mayor, and we're going to work to make sure we protect all groups, seniors, people in low incomes, and people with large homes. It'll be a fair system for everybody.
So do you think we just have 15 seconds, but do you think that the provincial assessment cap should be lifted?
No way. It can't be because, like I said, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I've talked to seniors running in the elections, and I mean, they can't even afford to heat in their homes because
Okay,
of
we'll have to
taxes.
end it at the no way for now. All right, Chris Addis.
Thank you, Steve. Well, we're all paying high taxes. I mean, that's been the story since the beginning of time, pretty much, or since the beginning of taxes. But as far as the tax cap goes concerned, the province is going to remove that whether we like it or not, and we better be ready for it. Now, they're saying that if they remove the tax cap, they can drop the tax rate by 20%, I believe it is, or 19%. And we're going to have to phase that in for the people that are going to take a big hit. And some people are going to take a big hit, and that's just the way it's going to be.
So you see evidence that the tax cap is going to be lifted?
Yeah, that's the information that I'm getting, sir. The province is going to lift the tax cap. It's only a matter of time.
All right, thank you very much, Chris Abbas. We're going to go with 3 minutes of open discussion and debate among your candidates, beginning with John Strasser. John?
We're still on taxation because I want to go back to equalization for a minute.
We're on taxation right now.
Okay. The current taxation that we have in the CBRM is not fair to the homeowners. It's great for the people that have the cap on and they don't have to look forward to large increases. But if we're trying to build the municipality, we're actually putting roadblocks in front of people to come here to establish here.
So do you have a mechanism by which you would want to see the cap changed?
I think you have to get people who have opinions in the cap system and try to work out a solution that makes the valuation fair for everybody.
All right, we have to move on. Amanda McDougall, then Cecil Clark. Amanda?
I find it very disappointing to hear a mayoral candidate say they are not interested in removing a system that is broken and outdated. That means it's going to be harder to attract new families to come here. It's going to be harder for our seniors to downsize when they want to. And right now, it is out of our hands. All of the research has been done. There has been tremendous amount of work over the past 4 years, should you have paid attention to council. But we don't have the authority to actually remove the cap. It comes from the province. They have not budged on this because they want an all-party consensus.
Cecil Clark and then Chris Abbott. Cecil?
Just building on Amanda's comments, it would take a 20% overall reduction and the phase-in that was discussed to get where we need to be fair. For the commercial tax rate, it would take a $13 million hit in one fiscal year to get to the provincial average. These are the things that are part of our viability study that we are addressing, putting them forward with the province. And we have to look at phase-in of a new assessment. We have to look at incentives in the short term while continuing to pressure the provincial legislature to do the right thing and get a proper system in place.
And do you think the cap should be removed?
We need a new tax system. It has to be replaced
Chris
with a
Abbott.
new system.
The charter, I believe, is the way to wrestle the grip of taxation away from the province and take it back to the municipality. But the charter has been sitting on Councillor McDougall's desk for the last year and a half. You know, this is an important matter, and I'd like to ask the councillor why she hasn't addressed this matter.
And what is the mechanism in the charter that you think would address the taxation
Well,
issue?
just the independence that we're going to have our own form of self-governance.
All right, Amanda McDougall, on the charter.
So there is a charter committee. The chair has gone on to become the MLA. We were told by the province that we could not go forward because we have to get permission to get the charter. We could not go forward with that until a viability study was complete, recommendations come through, and then unfortunately COVID hit.
That was 18 months ago that the study was finished.
All right,
I'd like to know
Cecil
what she
Clark.
was doing for 18 months.
Cecil Clark, you want in?
Yes, with a new council, it's my intention to bring the charter process back to the full council table. The committee process did not work. It failed to meet. There was one meeting convened by the province. We've got to get back at this. It allows for the transfer of Crown authority, and that's what the new council will tackle.
All right, we'll end it on that note. Thank you all very much for the discussion, and thank you very much to Mr. Forsey for the question. Everybody have a drink of water and get ready for the next one. If you're watching from home, you are live stream. You didn't add anything to that water, I hope. We're live streaming on the CBC Nova Scotia landing page. Yes. Oh, do we have some extra water for Mr. McKinnon? Stand by.
I'll have one too. If you
Oh, we need a couple, if you have it. Just be patient there.
It's warm up here.
We'll send out to the green room in concessions. You're watching the CBC Cape Breton live stream of the mayoralty debate in the CBRM. You're on the CBC Nova Scotia live stream on the landing page at cbc.ca/ns and on CBC Cape Breton's Facebook page. Of course, we'll be also broadcasting this on CBC Radio in the weeks to come, on the morning show and the afternoon show on 92.1 FM in Sydney. And we'll also post this online so everybody can see it later on. Your candidates are Amanda McDougall, Archie McKinnon, Chris Abbas, John Strasser, Cecil Clark, and Kevin McEachern, left to right across your screen. All right, we have another question about development, and this is a topic that was submitted by several different voters in advance of the debate, specifically on the Novaport project. Thank you for the water, Nicole. These are a few samples of the questions we received, and then we'll end with a question. From Steve Drake of New Waterford, given the long-term failure of the Sydney Harbour Investment Partners to move the Novaport container terminal project beyond the most basic concept stage, and given the lack of funding to rehabilitate the rail line, will you as mayor take the necessary legal steps to formally end the unsuccessful CBRM relationship with SHIP and the Novaport project? Another sample from Brian Joseph of North Sydney. In your view, is the proposed Sydney container pier known as Novaport a real possibility, or is it merely a pipe dream? Finally, from Rick Mayich, and our question to the candidates on this topic. What is your position on the proposed Novaport and Novazone? What do you see as the largest obstacles in making it a reality, and how do you propose overcoming those obstacles? So on the container port project, we are going to start with 1 minute from each candidate, beginning with Cecil Clark.
Thank you very much. I couldn't disagree more with Steve Drake on this. Brian, yes, it is very much a possibility for us to realize a container opportunity for the Port of Sydney. And for Rick, in terms of the mechanisms to do that, I go back to, as I previously said, when we talk about forging relationships, our First Nation partners have an equity position in Novaport. They've invested in this, they've bought land because they know and they've been part of this process. When we talk about rail, the province has already said that they will invest in the upgrades once there is an agreement in place. And people then say, well, is it just a pipe dream? Well, our fiscally prudent premier, who doesn't put money out easily, put in $60,000 a month for the continuance of an agreement for rail preservation. And that $60,000 a month is there because they know there are opportunities out there that the private sector have to realize. Aside from a global pandemic, we're going into geopolitics that have affected us, but the Port of Sydney is very well positioned for future development, and I'm very confident about our future.
All right, Cecil Clark on the Novaport. We're going now to Kevin McEachern.
Okay, I do believe that the Novaport is a good project. I believe that the First Nations investment in that is phenomenal. The rail system has to be brought up. That's the first and foremost thing. It cannot go any farther ahead right now, as far as I'm concerned, unless we get the rail into the Novaport. Can we do it? Yes, we can. But the province and the feds actually have to come behind us in that as well. Let's do it. Let's push forward.
And what do you think of the agreement for the exclusive marketing of the port with the Sydney Harbour Investment Partners and the CBRM?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, fair enough. So that's Kevin McEachern. Amanda McDougall, on your position on the proposed Novaport and Nova Zone and the largest obstacles in the way of making that a reality. 1 minute.
Well, very clearly the largest obstacle right now is rail, but I think we need to look at rail as not only a benefit for this project, but a benefit for the overall economic development for our region. If we were able to bring back rail, I think you would see the spin-offs in multiple sectors and industries. What I do worry about throughout this process is a standard that we've set, that we get behind one industry, one business, and we push for them, but we don't use that same standard with other industries and sectors. We need to be able to set that standard of where we intervene and where we let industry dictate how industry is going to develop here in the CBRM. We were most successful when we took a step back and we let industry go out and try to figure this out. We are not experts around the council table and should not be going and traveling and doing all these things on behalf of one organization if we're not going to do it for all organizations.
And do you support the relationship with SHIP?
I respect the current development agreement. I think that when that is up, it needs to come back to council, and we have to have a good, solid look through that agreement again.
All right, thank you, Amanda McDougall. On the Novaport, Archie McKinnon.
Well, first of all, if I get elected mayor, I think it will just shut it all down. I think it's a waste of money. You know, I've looked at some of the salaries, and now I've actually found out that it's a personal thing that the mayor has full control of. You know, we've got depleted rail lines, some of them underwater, buried under the ground. We've got Halifax in full bloom up there with the Paramax crane, one of the most up-to-date and modern cranes for ports. And, you know, where are we going to get the money, you know, to keep this thing going? I think it's a dream of the mayor, and it's a dream of the mayor and the taxpayers here in Cape Breton. And I think it should be just all shut down. So if I'm mayor, I'm going to be asking to shut it all down.
All right, Archie McKinnon, thank you very much. Chris Avis on Novaport and the relationship with Sydney Harbour Investment Partners.
Okay, well, there'll be no port until the private sector deems it feasible to do so. We can offer them all the incentives in the world. These companies are multi-billion-dollar, multinational companies. So if we're going to offer them a $200,000 tax break to come set up here, that's a joke to them. That's a couple of days' revenue to them. Myself, I'm tired of Mr. Clark prancing all over the continent for the last 8 years on these port development meetings. It's spent a phenomenal amount of the CBRM's money with absolutely no results. You know, we could say anybody, oh, they're going to develop the port if they can get the money. I mean, we can get Cecil and Mary Morrison to develop the port if they can get the money.
Certainly a charming couple. But before we run out of time, you have 15 seconds to tell me whether you think that the relationship should be dissolved with Sydney Harbour Investment Partners.
Yes, yes.
All right. On the Novaport, John Strasser.
I think part of the problem that we keep facing as an area, and whether it's CBRM or the earlier North Sydney arrangement, we do not take advantage of the resources we have. We have rail lines, we have the water, and all of the other countries in the world that have resources internally are looking for rail lines to get product to a water site and then some type of ship to take it to where it's needed. If you look at this, and I'm gonna break a rule here. This is from the Canadian Trade Review from the year 1900, April 13, 1900. We've been talking about the advantages of Cape Breton Island for that long. We're still talking, doing very little.
All right, we'll leave it there for now, and you can pick it up in the 3 minutes of open discussion and debate. So your position on the proposed Novaport Nova Zone, how that has been prosecuted by the CBRM, and what do you see as the largest obstacles, and what would you do to address those? We're going to start with 3 minutes. We're going to move rapidly and swiftly, everyone, and if you want in the conversation, get my attention, starting with Cecil Clark.
So let's look at our biggest opportunity in the short term to address the rail issue. Our Prime Minister has talked about all of the green futures you're going to invest in. The federal government is putting infrastructure there. Right now in Moncton, over 100,000 trailers are coming off rail and going on truck coming into our region. There's enough traffic with that alone to sustain rail. They're putting $274 million on 39 kilometers of twinned highway on the mainland. This is an efficient way. It's environmentally friendly. It's an opportunity for our region that the federal government's opened the door for.
Archie, and then Chris, and then Amanda. Archie McKinnon.
I'm just shocked. I mean, I didn't realize that the Port Authority was, I thought it was full council. Kind of shocked to think that it's something the mayor runs, controls, and looks after, and all the people on council just do absolutely nothing about it. And I'm shocked to think that one of them is actually running to be the mayor after allowing somebody like Cecil to continue to run a department like that and council not even have any consultation with it.
Chris Abbas.
Yes, thank you. As I said before, there's not going to be any port until the private sector deems it feasible. And I don't see that happening until at least up in Halifax. They still have a bit of room there, not a whole lot, but I'm thinking it's got to be at least 7 to 10 years before Halifax runs out of space and they have to come down here. And when they do have to come down here, it's not going to be us telling them what we're going to do for them. It's going to be them telling them what they're going to do for us to get in our harbor.
Amanda McDougall.
Thank you. So just for clarity, the Port Authority is something completely different from the container terminal and the development that we're talking about. But I think it's most important as mayor to focus on what we have. We have invested significantly in things like the second berth because we know that tourism is going to be a guarantee once we get back to a normal. But we also in council have had the conversations around making sure that council is being consulted on those files. It was turned down.
All right, Cecil Clark.
Well, you have to look at the broader commercialization of the harbor, from the dredging that took place that everyone came together behind, to the development of an idled wharf. Now Sitport is thriving. East Coast Metal Fabricator, CME, with a warship. Our harbor is thriving. There's dredging going on. PEV is moving forward. When we talk about marketing our community is on the move, and hundreds of jobs have been created as a result of the CBRM taking a stance, building on Mayor Morgan and his council's multi-million-dollar investment. So I'm proud to build on that legacy that the former government put in place.
Not much time left. Kevin or John, do you want in? Do you want to finish that comment, John? Archie?
Yeah.
Very briefly.
$200,000 for a wage for the CEO, who's probably one of the friends of the mayor. Like, that stuff's got to stop down here. That's wasteful. We see that much wasteful money down here, it's ridiculous. And it's got to stop.
We don't pay $200,000 for anybody at the Port Authority. That is being funded through ACOA and also through the Port Authority
It's taxpayer
revenues.
funds, Councillor. It's all taxpayer funds.
And we're going to end it on that point. Thank you all very much for the discussion on the Novaport. You are watching the CBC live stream of the mayoralty debate for the CBRM in 2020. We're about halfway through the evening and having a good series of conversations. Thanks very much to all the candidates. Have a drink of water, relax. We're about to move on. And we're going to start a new chapter in the evening. We've been talking about a lot of fiscal questions, questions of development. We've been talking about numbers, money, and taxation. The next series of questions are we're going to talk a bit about social policy, in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. So this is a question that is going to be going to all candidates. The first answer will go to Kevin McEachern. We're going to get 1 minute from each of you. So first up, we're going to talk about the topic of police funding, something especially appropriate this week, apropos after the Premier's apology for systemic racism in the justice system, including, in his view, the police, and actions to reform that. In the lead up to this debate, CBRM CBRM resident Sonia asked, I would like to hear your thoughts on local police and calls for defunding the police. Do you support defunding the police? And if so, what does that mean to you? And also, if you could direct your attention to the monitors, we have a question on video.
Hi, so my name is Celia Best Bourgeois. I'm from Whitney Pear. My question concerns policing in the CBRM. So right now our law enforcement officers are left to carry a heavy burden for which they are not either trained in or qualified to do. So leaving them worn out, and frankly, they're at their wits' end. So with that being said, what will you do in the way of reallocating money towards mental health, housing, addiction services, education, healthcare in general, so that our community as well as our police officers have the resources that they need to be successful?
Thank you, Sela, who is one of the organizers of the rally earlier this year at the police station on Grand Lake Road. So, on the topic of police funding in a municipality that has a higher per capita number of officers compared to other municipalities of its size across the country, on the topic of police funding, public safety, and improved support for people who come in contact with the police. 1 minute from each of your candidates, beginning with Kevin McEachern. Kevin.
Thank you, Steve. First off, point blank, no, we should not defund the police. We do have to bring in more training for them. We do have to bring in more addiction centers, more help, more health social service workers. We have to get this done. We've got a lot of addiction here in the CBRM, and actually the whole province of Nova Scotia. Our justice system needs a little bit of revamping as well. The police are doing their job. In a lot of cases, they're not fully trained. There's many aspects of the law. It takes many, many years for the young officers to learn. They do need more training. I'd like to see that happen as soon as at all possible. They are doing, from what I can see, a very good job here. They're quite busy. You hear the sirens going all the time here in the city. The health system here, it's working. It's slow. It has to be revamped. We've got to do something. The biggest thing is the addiction centers. We need a new addiction center here in the CBRM.
All right, Kevin McEachern, thank you very much. Next up, Amanda McDougall on police funding.
Thank you. So policing in the CBRM is definitely one of the most significant budget items that we deal with every year, but it's also, because it's rightfully so, one of the most important services that we do offer our residents. Our police force is overworked. They have been working incredibly hard. We know that the numbers of people who are off on sick leave or stress leave are valid. What we need to do right now is invest more in our police. We have to advocate on their behalf. We need to make sure that we're going to the Nova Scotia Health Authority and saying, good job, do your own health development, but we need help directly in our departments. Our poverty rates are going up. Our addictions issues are increasing and becoming more complex. But our crime rates are actually going down. So we know our police force are doing an excellent job, but we have to support them better. We need to make sure that there are addictions counselors, trauma counselors. We need to make sure that social workers are there and helping along the way instead of allowing our police officers to carry the burden of many jobs in one day.
We're out of time, but just to clarify, do you mean hiring those positions within the force?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we'll just stop it there for now. Maybe we can pick it up later. Archie McKinnon.
Well, first of all, I agree that we certainly need help in the fire department or in the police department. And what I'd like to see if I'm elected is we're going to redo the budget for 2021. We're going to have our council sit down and do it. I'd like to see an opiate addiction treatment center with 50 beds here on the island. You know, because the amount of drugs, and it's all because of poverty. You know, there's people out there that are living in poverty, they're taking drugs and hoping the pain will go away, and it's affecting everything. You know, we've seen some major things take place here in the island, and it's all to do with the conditions down here. You know, there's no rosy conditions down here. This debate should be all about poverty and what's taking place here. So that's my concern. I'm going to fight for more more funding for the police department. I'm very interested in trying to create 50 opiate beds here on the island for people.
So just to clarify, I wrote a time, Archie, but just a yes or no, you're looking to increase funding to the police?
Well, we're going to increase funding, and I want council to be involved in it. I'm not a mayor
Okay,
that's going to be a
we'll pick it up in
dictator
the
for everybody.
conversation later.
It's going to be a council decision.
Okay. Chris Abbas on the concept of police funding, public safety, and improved support for people who come in contact with the police.
Well, before we talk about defunding the police, the budget is so huge that maybe we need to start talking about making the police run a little more efficiently rather than talk about slash. And I'm hoping to, if I'm elected mayor, I'm hoping to impose a zero-based budgeting system. And what it does is, instead of, if the police went out this year and spent $27 million on in their budget, then next year they're going to start from $27 million again, and they'll justify all their spending they've done. Well, with zero-based budgeting, they have to justify the spending before they do it. So you say you need $28 million. Show us, chief. Show us, administrators, that you need show us where you need the $28 million. And if they say, hey, oh, look, we got $7,000 down here for advertising. Well, we don't need any advertising, chief. We don't need any of that nonsense. You know, we're not sustainable here, and we're still, if I'm not mistaken, I think mayor and council are still wishing us a Merry Christmas, and I don't know how much that's costing us every year. You know, we just don't have the money for that sort of nonsense.
All right, we'll leave it at that point. John Strasser on police funding and the possibility of redirecting some resources to other matters.
I think part of the problem with CBRM is that the budget is not looked at as a total product and where you take the dollars that you have and invest it. The police problem shouldn't be any larger a problem than many of the other items. I had 600 plus people at St. Clair College when I was in charge. If you should be able to make comparisons with other police forces, you should be able to say, I can't afford any more police, so don't look to add anybody, and you have to look at how you can make the current force better. All of those are open for discussion. Just increasing a percentage number every year is ridiculous.
All right, Cecil Clark.
Steve, I'm totally opposed to defunding police. What we have right now as part of the viability study is a police service review, looking at some of the challenges within our system. We have 200 service personnel and 30 civilian. We have 34 off and extended health right now, and we have to look at the effects of PTSD and other reasons that are impacting the workplace. But we also have to recognize the challenges that are there and the police taking on, and I'm very pleased the Premier recognized in his statement about racism and the impact on our Black and Indigenous communities. He called me a couple of days ago to talk about the fact that really it shouldn't be the role of police doing child apprehension. It should not be the role of police doing wellness checks. That is something the province should be doing. And there is a proper service exchange that needs to be in place so that our resources go to train our officers, as when I was the minister and put 19 more boots on the ground here, things like mental health policing, internet child exploitation, and have our police service more trained and able to respond.
All right, thank you very much for that. So we're going to open this up to a conversation among your candidates on the issue of police funding and redirecting possibly some of those resources to other things, perhaps getting at some of the things that Seela mentioned in her question, things like wellness checks being done by police officers. We're going to start off with Kevin McEachern. We have 3 minutes for all the candidates, and we'll keep moving along swiftly. Kevin.
Okay, we do need more addiction center here. We need a lot more than 50 beds in this area. We have to hire social workers to work with the police. These checks on the homeless people, everything have to be increased. It has to be worked on, and it has to start as soon as at all possible.
All right, Cecil Clark.
So when we look at, again, crime rates overall are down, but the complexity of crime has gone up. And if you look at as well, the pressure on our service, in 2019, 73,000 calls for service were issued. That's 8,000 more than the previous year. There's a lot of pressure on our system and on our personnel that are there that are creating stress issues in the workplace. We've got to get to those systemic challenges, and that's what the police review as an independent outside will bring to council when it reconvenes this fall.
Chris Abbas.
Thank you. Absenteeism, it's a big concern. And Mr. Clark and Councillor McDougall have failed to address this over the last 4 years. So them coming out here now and saying, oh, they're all over it. and Councillor McDougall to say that these are all valid absenteeism. I'd like to ask her, has she gone and interviewed these officers, or what's the deal? Or is she just assuming that these are valid absenteeisms?
And you're proposing to address the absenteeism in what way?
Well, to adjust the absenteeism, I suppose it would have to go through the chief and his immediate staff and work very closely with them and find out what's going on, why these officers are off. I don't know, to tell you the truth, sir.
Amanda McDougall.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, Mr. Abbas, if you're aware of privacy laws and HR requirements, but we are not permitted to discuss in council the individual issues that
Well, how
each
would you know
person-
they're valid then?
Excuse me, my time. What we need to do is increase funding, and not necessarily from our own CBRM budget, but like Cecil Clark was talking about, an increase in service agreements. We do a great job in terms of having policing here in Membertou. We do receive some money for that through service agreements. We need to do the exact same thing through the Nova Scotia Health Authority, who are very eager to be helping and growing and putting that money into Cape Breton Island right now. Let us help dictate how that happens.
And very quickly on Mr. Abbas's point, though, what about the issue of absenteeism on the force?
Thank you.
What about it? Well, we have to address it. There's obviously something going awry. We know it's because we put too much pressure on our police officers as it is. They're doing jobs that they are not trained to do. They're doing more than they are expected from their job descriptions. That's why we have to go and seek outside funding to make sure that we have more trained individuals supporting the police system.
All right, Cecil Clark, then we're ending with Archie McKinnon. Cecil.
And that's with all the challenges that we've just been discussing. I've reached out to the police union as well. I work with the police management, but I've reached out to the union executive, and they've offered to sit down and meet. We need to talk about this in a confidential setting so that we can get to the root causes of this, because everybody wants improved public safety.
Last word to Archie McKinnon. Archie, briefly.
Well, I'll tell you, I even had the police at my place. You know, with all the stuff that's going on, people are robbing and breaking into places. I had a police officer at my house, and I explained everything to him that took place, and he said to me, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I thought to myself, like, what in the name of God is this?
And we'll have to end it with that question. Thank you very much to you, and thank you very much to all the candidates. And thank you very much, Sheila Best-Bourgeois, for that question. Well, up next, we have perhaps a related topic raised by a number of voters in the lead up to this debate, the issue of tackling poverty and the representation of marginalized people in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. So, for example, from Krista McEachern via Facebook, she says, with the child poverty rate in the CBRM, what policy or program changes will you put forth to help feed Cape Breton children? Have you made this a priority in your campaign? Britt Gillis asks about affordable housing. She says affordable housing needs to be addressed. The homeless rate in Nova Scotia is rising. Rent costs are beyond what we make. How do you plan to approach these urgent matters? And if you'll direct your attention to the screens, we also have a question from the Jane Paul Indigenous Women's Resource Centre, which actually had its grand reopening today in downtown Sydney after more than a year of being closed.
My name is Karen Bernard. I am the director of the Jane Paul Indigenous Women's Resource Centre. My question for you is, what will you do to foster greater levels of collaboration among nonprofits, NGOs, charities, and provincial and federal governments to better meet the needs of marginalized First Nations people?
Thank you very much, Karen, from the Jane Paul Indigenous Resources Centre, just newly reopened with 5 years of stable funding, meeting the needs of women who live off-reserve in Sydney, away from their communities and away from their community supports. So generally, we're looking for conversation on poverty, on marginalized people in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality and support for those people. We're going to go with 1 minute from each of the candidates, beginning with Amanda McDougall.
Thank you. So Karen's question about how to support the organizations that are already established in the CBRM is a very important one. One of the things that I have been adamant in my platform is refocusing the mandate of our sustainability fund. We can't find new money, get blood from a stone, as they say, but what we can do is use the resources that we do have and make sure we're looking at how that money is being allocated to organizations that are already working towards poverty initiatives, working with marginalized communities. We have to open it up as well. We know that there are some organizations out there that don't necessarily fit the criteria of the sustainability fund as it is. If it is within the lens of decreasing poverty and helping our most vulnerable people, we have to open up that criteria and make it more accessible and streamlined towards these organizations. I'll keep going at my next.
All right, in the next round. Thank you very much, Amanda McDougall. Archie McKinnon, this is something you've raised several times through the course of the evening. What's your vision?
Well, first of all, you know what my vision is. It's going to be some equalization money. You know, equalization money is going to take care of at least 60% of our problems here in this island. The other 40% of the problems, the mayor and council are going to come together as a team and the community to deal with them. And as far as money, Amanda says we can't find no money. Well, I can find $140,000 if I get elected because those rollbacks are going back if I'm the mayor.
And what rollbacks are you talking about exactly?
Well, that was their wage increase at their illegal meeting they had. So, you know, they can't find money. She's saying, you know, we have to tap into this and that to try to find money. Well, we can find money right within the regional municipality, money that's being wasted by them behind closed doors for themselves.
All right, Archie McKinnon, thank you very much. Chris Avis, on the issues of poverty and marginalized people in this community and steps you could take as a councillor or as a mayor.
Well, child poverty is a term. The real issue is poverty. You know, children don't live by themselves. They live in poverty-stricken families. As the mayor of the CBRM, I will commit resources to this problem. However, we need to provide a high level of service, an efficient level of service, so that we can attract business and build our tax base so that there will be more opportunities here. The best solution for poverty is a job. Thank you.
And we have about 15 seconds left. You have a missed opportunity that would create that economic development you're looking for.
That's a tough question, sir, but, you know, first of all, to raise money for these children, I'm hoping that I'm going to cut the mayor's and the council's travel budget by 30%. That's going to put $50,000 into this program for children and families that need it.
All right, we'll end it there for now. John Strasser on the issue of marginalized people in the CBRM, including Mi'kmaq people who are living off reserve, poverty, and affordable housing.
About 1 in 4 children currently in Nova Scotia are suffering from poverty. Not an easy problem to solve, and not a problem that you're going to solve in a matter of weeks or months. I'll give you one example of what we did in Windsor, Ontario. We fed the entire school with spaghetti, pasta, garlic bread once a week for 3 years because they weren't getting hot meals at home. I think sometimes we look for solutions that are going to solve everything, and some of it is just a little bit at a time. And I think that's the approach we have to do here.
All right, John Strasser, thank you very much. Cecil Clark on poverty and marginalized people in this community.
Thank you very much. And I would have to say as well that the best poverty reduction strategy is jobs, and we have a wave of them coming, but it doesn't help the people that are living through poverty and the challenges right now. And some of the systemic things are just not economic. We've just been talking about some of the challenges with addictions that manifest themselves. It's not just one item. And part of that is how do you bring all your agencies together? And how does the CBRM look at its resources to be in a partner? When I look at COVID-19 with vulnerable populations, we worked at that from the point of view of bringing the province to the table, knowing we had to respond as a municipality with those groups, with our community agencies. We were a partner. We weren't running the show, the people who are at the front lines. And we have to bring all those agencies together. The challenge we had when we had a poverty summit, people were looking at it, well, we can spend that money better. But I look at the North Sydney Food Bank as a great example of expanding that, a community kitchen, housing development in a community center, and the municipality being there to facilitate that opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. Kevin McEachern, what do you think what kind of leadership you could take in your role as mayor when it comes to addressing the needs of people living in poverty and people who are marginalized and left out in this community?
Well, people saying that poverty is due to addiction. It's not. There's poverty in every walks of life. Don't have to be an addict to have it. Other people ask, like, where are we going to get this money from? Well, myself and a couple other people actually been talking for the last couple of weeks. We want to start another new group here in the CBRM. We want to call it Poverty Busters. Myself personally, Everybody's asking where they want to come up with the money with that. I'm willing to take 33 1/3% of the mayoral salary and donate it to that project to get things going if elected. That's what I want to get going. That's how serious I am about it.
All right, thank you very much. Kevin McEachern, we're going to move now to an open discussion among the candidates, 3 minutes, on the issue of addressing the needs of people who are living in poverty and who need affordable housing, the measures within the jurisdiction of the municipality and your leadership as mayor if elected that you could take to address that. 3 minutes, starting with Amanda McDougall to kick us off.
Thank you, Steve. So I think this is an opportunity for us to get creative and look at what is already happening in Nova Scotia. Places like the Verschuren Centre have been approaching the CBRM saying we have amazing ideas around things like affordable housing that is going to be primarily taken care of by renewable resources like wind and solar. There is so much money out there to make it easier for the daily lives of residents that we are not tapping into. We see things like Antigonish partnering up with other municipalities to buy solar fields and provide power to their residents and then get paid by Nova Scotia Power for the revenues that are coming in. We have to create new ways of getting revenue.
Archie McKinnon.
Well, like I said, one of the things I'd like to say to council, a real mayor goes out and helps his people. He goes out and when his people are hungry, he'll go out and he'll go around with food banks. He'll do things to show people that he cares. Not sit in behind closed doors and get wage increases and big paychecks for themselves while their people are hungry. And that's what this mayor is going to do if I get elected. I'm going to be on every organization involved with it, and I want all of my councillors to as well. Not be sitting down worrying about what we can do for ourselves, but what we can do for people, the real people on this island.
Cecil Clark.
So the real things we're doing is working again when we look at the Island Food Hub, when we look at the Good Food Bus, when we look at what we're doing, pandemic, you have people with local gardens. The municipality can work with our local agencies to provide more food security for vulnerable populations. We are out there working with housing. I've got private developers that want to build affordable, not low-income, affordable housing. Cape Breton University has a massive program so that students aren't living in slum housing conditions, that we overall provide those supports. The Allied Centre wants to have a monitored housing for vulnerable populations as well, and all those are things with programs that need to be put on the table once and for all.
Chris Abbas.
I just heard Mr. Clark use the term food security, and I've heard Councillor McDougall use the term food security policy. I mean, they're throwing this term around, and at first I didn't understand what it was, so I had to go and look it up. And the food security is not what they're implying it is. Food security is just that there's a variety of food, nutritional food that's always available. For example, in Europe, you can go into a grocery store and they'll say, oh, there's no meat today, there's no pork today, there's no chicken today, or there's no fish today. That's food security. It's got nothing to do with getting food to the people that need it.
Cecil Clark, and then John or Kevin, if you want in. Cecil?
And part of what I've also discussed is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has a guide for cities to reduce poverty, and that is laid out where the success stories are and a blueprint for us to follow.
All right, John or Kevin, you want last word? No, Kevin?
Okay. Now, this organization that I was speaking about earlier, but we're trying to get going here, we're not just going to be food. We're trying to collect furniture, clothing, whatever we can for people for what they need. We plan on delivering to the people. There are a lot of people that feel embarrassed to walk into a food bank to ask for food. Call up the organization, we'll deliver to them.
All right, we'll end it on that point. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thanks for everybody for that discussion. If you're just joining us, this is the live stream of the CBRM mayoralty debate for the vote in 2020, helping you make the decision that you have to make before October 17th. Voting starts on October the 7th. I'm your moderator, Steve Sutherland, the host of Information Morning on CBC in Cape Breton at 92.1 FM in Sydney. We're on the CBC Nova Scotia webpage, live streaming on the 30th of September, and the CBC Cape Breton Facebook page. Your candidates are Amanda McDougall, Archie McKinnon, Chris Abbas, John Strasser, Cecil Clark, and Kevin McEachern. All right, we're moving on to another question now, and this is another question on video. This is a question from the president of the CBU Students' Union.
Hi, my name is Amrinder Singh, and I'm the president and CEO for the Cape Breton University Students' Union. My question for you is, there has been an influx of international students coming to CBU to study in the last few years, which has helped Cape Breton County to develop both economically and culturally. Not sure if the candidates know about this. Most of the students move to Halifax and Toronto for more opportunities. Being personally connected to Cape Breton, I want our community to keep growing and developing. My question is, what would you as the mayor do to support these students or immigrants so that they stay in Cape Breton, call it their home, enrich the community with their experience and culture and not take all of this to some other city?
Thank you, Amrinder. That's Amrinder Singh with the CBU Students' Union, saying he'd like to see his community to keep growing and keep developing and keep people here to make that happen. So, what do you think is necessary to help international students and other newcomers decide to stay and live and work in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality? 1 minute from each of you on this, starting with Archie McKinnon. Archie.
Well, money. You know, we're a bankrupt municipality. No, not trying to hide anything from anybody. People know. This whole island knows that. You know, what can we do? Well, there's not much we can do other than fight for the money that we deserve. The $247 million, one of the most talked about issue in this election. The biggest issue. As I said, it's 60% of actually trying to do something to help this island. That's what we need. I mean, the bottom line is you're living in an island that's full of poverty, you know, full of unemployment, a lot of people hurting, people getting involved in drugs. We need help, and it takes money.
Archie McKinnon, thank you very much. So on the issue of newcomers and international students and encourage them and assisting them with support to stay and live in the CBRM, Chris Addis.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I have to be honest with you here. I don't see the foreign students being a big priority to the CBRM Mayor and Council, that's for sure. However, you know, some dialogue with the university out there, as far as Mayor and Council is concerned, wouldn't hurt. But really, I don't think it's a big priority for the CBRM. It's more of a provincial matter, I think.
What would be, oh, you mean it's not a priority in general?
To the CBRM, you know, these are foreign students. They're not residents. I'm not saying that we don't want them to be residents, but to us to utilize our resources, you know, to try to get a foreign student to stay here, we have a little more important things to spend our money on.
All right, Chris Abbas. John Strasser.
I think it's very simple to sit down with the student body and some of the representatives of the international group and find out the things that they're interested in that surround the university in this case, and then go to places like the bus company and say, we'll pay for the gas, but we need a bus to take 30 or 40 people to see this identified item. I think it's that simple. It's not complicated, and the bus companies will do it because they have the regular service all week if you want, and I think in this case because they're handling students or the population all the time, they'll gladly do it.
All right, thank you very much, John Strasser. So on the topic of assisting international students and other newcomers to decide to stay and live and work here, Cecil Clark.
Well, what I can say to Arminder and any newcomer, don't listen to anyone that says you're not a priority. You're essential to our community. Immigration founded this great island of the Mi'kmaq that welcomed us here. And we have been here with many different cultures, and we have new cultures coming. And by the way, we wouldn't have got through this pandemic if it wasn't for our international students that come here with other degrees. Our special option home, our grocery stores, they were on the front lines, folks. We have to support them more than ever. And yes, we have to have housing. We have to have our CBRM officials to endorse with inspections and crack down on slumlords, and rent gouging is an issue. Employment opportunities using the Cape Breton Partnership and our settlement organization is going to be critical to empower them, and the municipality needs to play a role. Transit, we've upped our schedule and frequency for that, and we've been sitting down with the CBU Students' Union. But shame on anyone that says a newcomer is not welcome or essential in this community.
Cecil Clark, thank you very much. We're on to Kevin McCackern.
Start off with, we're all newcomers here at one point or another. Everybody here is a newcomer, except for the Mi'kmaq community. Just foreign students here, foreign people in Cape Breton are the top priority as far as I'm concerned right now. They are their future here. I've got a large number of foreign students working for me. Actually, 75% of my workforce are foreign students. I could not have gotten through this pandemic without them. When this pandemic started, Every local person I had working for me quit and went on the curb. These young foreign workers worked point blank, they worked their asses off. I'd send them to all different stores all over the province, never an argument. They are there to work. They are here to stay. I'm working with a lot of my employees to try to get their permanent residence here in Nova Scotia, in Canada. They want to stay here in this municipality, work their jobs that they're studying to do. They are very important.
And just as a point of clarification for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, what is your business?
I actually have a couple of different businesses. I have a cleaning company. We clean the grocery stores. We cleaned and sanitized all these grocery stores, frontline workers, for the entire pandemic.
Okay, we just wanted to get an idea. Thank you very much, Kevin. Amanda McDougall on international students and newcomers.
Thank you. So I think it's important to note that for every international student that is here, they're bringing approximately $23,000 a year into our local economy. We need to be working on their behalf. We have an opportunity to be one of the first municipalities to pilot a municipal nominee program. That program can be focused on getting students to be able to stay here after their education has been completed, and then we can do the work to make it easier for them to start businesses, open businesses. It is incredible the amount of growth and development that has happened solely because our international students have been able to stay here and start businesses. We also need to, we have to create a retention program, quite frankly. We need people to feel valued when they come here. We have to make sure that we make that connection with the newcomers that are in our community so that they will stay. If that is making sure that our international students have a couple of positions on the youth council, which I've proposed, absolutely. We need to hear firsthand from the horse's mouth what we can do to be better. If that is somewhere to buy transit tickets in the downtown core, great, let's get it on the next agenda item.
All right, thank you very much, Amanda McDougall. We're going to continue this discussion among your candidates for mayor in the CBRM in 2020. We're going to be asking you about what do you think is within the realm of the CBRM to do to assist or encourage international students and other newcomers to live and work and stay here is the question from Membertou Singh. And Archie McKinnon, you're going to kick us off in this 3 minutes.
Well, like I said, we got to be honest with them. We're prepared to do whatever we can to help you. But you have to realize we can't even afford to have affordable housing for our own people that have been here for the last 20, 30 years. They're seniors living with friends because they can't afford to get affordable housing. So, don't allow some of these politicians to paint a rosy story and we're going to fix everything. They've done nothing in the last 4 years. It's got worse every year, so.
All right, Cecil,
gotta
Chris,
be
and then
honest.
Amanda. Cecil?
And building, and I agree with Amanda in terms of the municipal nominee. It's been a partnership work through our community. But more importantly, this question itself deals with another aspect, and that is we've got to deal with the racism that's in our society that was been acknowledged, and it applies to newcomers and people who are here when we talk about our Black community, Indigenous, and we've got to deal with that. And I am offended by people in this thing, whether Amanda's a woman or I'm gay or it's an issue that people seem to be tearing people apart rather than building up this community. And it's the wrong message, and the new council will definitely deal with this head on.
Chris Abbas and then Amanda McDougall. Chris?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say shame on Mr. Clark for saying that I would say these foreign workers and foreign students were not welcome. My wife came here as a foreign worker. That's just not the case. Not the case at all. Mr. Clark, he's wanting to help everybody. Oh, he's going to help the foreign workers. He's going to help the city workers. The money is not there. I don't know where he thinks he's going to get this extra money from, but it's just not there. Thank you.
Amanda McDougall?
Thank you. So last year was actually the very first year within my lifetime anyways, that we actually seen our population grow here on Cape Breton Island. We need only to look to our neighbors on PEI and see what they're doing. They are welcoming newcomers at a very, very rapid pace that they negotiated with the federal government. And because of that number of people that have increased, they now have a better tax revenue to work from. They can invest more in businesses. They can invest more in infrastructure. You need to increase your population if you're going to do anything to grow your community.
All right, running short on time. Kevin McCacker.
Okay, Mr. Abbas made a comment about doesn't know where the money's coming from for these students and foreign workers. They come here, they work for their money. They're limited, the students are limited to 20 hours per week right now. Very, very hard to live on. They work their asses off for the money they make.
Absolutely.
The affordable housing, it's not the students that cause that, it's the people right here that's gouging the rents out of them, gouging like crazy. The students landed here, an apartment that was $600 a month is now $1,200 a month. It's ridiculous.
So what do you think your role would be as mayor?
We got to get a rental cap on here. We have to get things on an even keel. We have to keep these young people here working.
All right.
The racism here is just unreal. The stuff that my foreign workers come and tell me daily is just ridiculous.
We'll have to end it with Cecil Clark very briefly.
So
Cecil.
to be open and inclusive, it isn't about a check, it's about kindness, and it's about time we insert that more in this campaign process as well.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for your answers to that question. And thanks to Amrinder Singh for presenting that question this evening. All right, next up, our next topic, and we're entering the home stretch. You may or may not be pleased and encouraged to know. A couple more questions to go this evening, but our next question is on the mayor's role and the municipality's role in environmental leadership. So to give you a sense of the kind of questions we received along these lines, from Scott Sharplin, as all communities face the rapidly increasing effects of climate disruption and global warming, what specific targets would your administration establish to reduce CBRM's overall carbon footprint and ensure a swift, stable transition to a green economy? And from Dylan Yates, president of the Cape Breton Environmental Association, what, in your opinion, is the most significant environmental issue facing Cape Breton today, and how will you go about tackling this issue? We're going to be starting this discussion with Chris Abbas. So once again, what, in your opinion, is the most significant environmental issue facing Cape Breton today? How would you go about tackling this issue with as mayor, with your municipal council? So on the topic of your priorities as mayor when it comes to environmental stewardship, Chris Abbas.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, environmental is a no-brainer. We have a dump in the middle of our city. Now, we have other people other candidates here that seem to think that we need green spaces and make sure that the water is prepared for our future citizens. Well, that's all well and fine, but right now we're looking at a mounding pile of garbage in our city. In our municipality. And I understand that we're paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million a year to truck this garbage out to Guysborough County. Now, and I also understand that Guysborough County managed to lower their taxes by taking our garbage. What we need to do is start a third-generation dump a landfill, where we can alleviate this problem of a garbage heap in the middle of our city. I think that's first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On your environmental priorities, John Strasser as mayor.
I think the environmental priorities that CBRM have pale in comparison to a lot of the other problems. It would not be high on my agenda if I were elected mayor. It's something we have to be aware of. But I don't think we're at that point. A lot of the problems that we have in the CBRM that I can see is apathy. People do things that they shouldn't do. Give you one quick example. Go for a walk every day on the Troutbrook Road, Myra. About a week ago, I decided I would count the garbage that was in the ditch along the way, and in about 400 feet, I counted 39 Tim Hortons cups, wrappers, that people have just thrown out the window. We've got a bigger problem than making green trails and all that. It's apathy.
All right, John Strasser, thank you very much. On your environmental priorities as mayor, Cecil Clark.
Well, I know Scott's passion is something that we've heard right at council, and I know Dylan has had hands-on doing the cleanups with community groups along our shorelines and getting rid of fishing gear and other shoreline waste. But when you ask me the most important or impact that's there serious is weather and the climate impact we're facing as a result of climate change. And we've seen that with the storm systems coming through that impacts our emergency measures, impacts our operations. But also what we have to do to respond is look at the things we're working with the province. We're looking at the electrification of our transit fleet and being Atlantic Canada's first pilot for $12 million, 8 new buses with the charging stations. Looking at examples for police with the Hamilton, Ontario, about putting propane in place and public works. having electric vehicles for our inspectors, and getting back to where we've committed to update our climate adaptation plan and respond, and working with ACAP, Cape Breton, and all of our community partners. So we have a lot of things, and we're a leader in recycling and waste management, and we should be proud of what our citizens do to protect their community.
All right, Cecil Clark, thank you very much. Kevin McCacker.
Okay, we do need to clean up the CBRM. The landfill site, or dump as you call it, over on Spar Road is getting larger. We need one out in the county somewhere away from the city. We do need more parks. We need more spaces. We need more places for the children to play, safe places for the children to play. The highway garbage is ridiculous. Right now, most of the Tim Hortons don't have garbage cans, which they should have. To clean road cleanups, there's no reason why they can't get people in the detention center, put them on work programs, get them out there cleaning up the highways, cleaning up the community. So.
All right, what would you say would be your most important priority when it comes to the environment if you're leading the CBRM?
Cleaning up the CBRM.
All right.
Gathering the garbage is everywhere. There's garbage everywhere in the city.
All right, Kevin
And
McCacker.
county.
Thank you very much. So on the issues of climate change, environmental priorities, Amanda McDougall, 1 minute.
So I think I have 3 priorities: climate change, the reduction of single-use plastics, and the overall reduction of waste that is being produced by residents in the CBRM. The reason we need to do this, we have to look at where we're allowing people to build homes. We know that our sea levels are rising and their properties are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. It is our responsibility to make sure that we do not allow people to build in very dangerous areas. We also need to look at things like extended producer responsibility that shifts the responsibility of end-of-life plastics back onto producers and start changing the way things are done. Not only do we then decrease the amount of plastics that are being used, we're actually finding a way to create a revenue that comes back to the municipality. Putting more landfills in our municipality is not the answer. It's reducing the amount of waste that residents are actually producing on a daily basis.
All right, thank you very much, Amanda McDougall. On your environmental priorities, the last 1 minute to Archie McKinnon.
Well, we need to recycle. You know, we can create jobs here by recycling. I'm not sure, but as a person going to the dump on a regular basis, the only 2 people I know that work for the municipality over there are the 2 people in the scale house. All the other people I've ever spoken to, they said, I work for a millionaire. I said, you work for a millionaire? But I mean, that's what's wrong here. You know, somebody is making a pile of money off our garbage. We hear people saying $7 million. Something wrong. You know, I've taken garbage over there and $92 a ton I'm charged. So, like, if somebody's charging me $92 a ton, we should be processing that ourselves and making money off it.
So very briefly, what would be your environmental priority if you were mayor?
Well, as I said, we're going to recycle it all, not bury it all on a hill over here in the center of the city and pay somebody $92 a ton to bury it.
All right, thank you very much, Archie McKinnon. We're going to open this up to 3 minutes of open discussion and debate among all 6 of your candidates on the topic of carbon footprint and your environmental priorities. What is the most significant environmental issue facing Cape Breton today? How would you go about tackling that issue from a municipal point of view if you were the mayor? Chris Abbas.
First of all, I'd just like to speak to Mr. Clark. He said we're a leader in waste management. I don't think Mr. Clark's ever been at the dump. I really don't. And as far as buying electric buses to plug in, that's all great and fine, but I wonder who's going to pay for that. And thirdly, Councillor McDougall has said about single-use plastics, and at the first of this campaign, she made a big deal about she's going to use single-use plastics and whatnot. Well, I was up hanging a sign the other day, and she's using the same corrugated plastic in her signs that we're all using for ours. So I'd like some transparency from Councillor McDougall.
All right, some response from Cecil Clark, then we'll go to Amanda McDougall.
So as a result of the Thanksgiving Day flood, we were able to get government-funded money for flood mitigation projects within the CBRM. We have a huge wastewater obligation here and commitment. We've made massive strides this year, as I said, to get the federal, provincial governments to pay 100% of the shot. My priority with the COVID-19 response from the federal government is the north side has a $158 million wastewater problem we have to fix, and it needs to be the focus of the next mandate to get all of our major communities with clean water going into our oceans.
Amanda McDougall, would you care to respond first, and then whatever comment you wanted to make?
Okay, thank you. So my intention is to reduce the amount of plastic that I'm putting out in the world. That's why I'm only using large signs, and then the only bit of advertising that I am using is recycled paper. So the other thing I wanted to note is that we actually don't have a list of environmental priorities for our municipality. We're only reacting to what is being mandated to us by the federal government. What I would like us to see is, or what I would like to see us do is use things like vacant land that are not being tax generators right now and let the communities use them for food production. That way we are reducing our carbon footprint. We are producing more at home, reducing how much carbon we're putting into the environment.
All right, Kevin McEachern?
Okay, first of all, with the way the families are growing here in the CBRM, new children all the time, we can't reduce the amount of plastics we use. It's going to increase, guaranteed. One thing I do want to find out about is what's happening with the steels and the metals going through the dump. Where is it going? That's a big recycling project. Where is that metal going?
All right, Chris Abbas and then Cecil Clark, briefly, gentlemen. We don't have much
I would
time.
like to ask Councillor McDougall again, because she made a big deal about using biodegradable signs, and she's not doing that. And I'd just like some transparency from the councillor who says,
quick
who
response.
talks all about transparency.
There was no point that I ever said biodegradable signs, so you're making that up, Mr. Abbas. Thank you.
Okay, Archie McKinnon?
That's your answer, councillor? That's your answer?
That's
I'm
her
making that up?
That's the
You
answer,
are.
yeah.
Another one of the things I like to talk about is also, you know what's happening around here? A lot of our garbage is being dumped in the back roads, and the reason behind that is because heavy garbage once a year is not working. You know, people cannot hold on to all this garbage for a year. What we have to do is change it and have heavy garbage twice a year.
Okay, very briefly,
So
Cecil
when we talk
Clark.
about reducing our carbon footprint, projects like a district energy project for the community college and all the downtown core, the study is going forward at $75,000, and our federal provincial governments are funding that, as well as electronic vehicles.
All right, we'll have to end it on that point. The clock says our time is up. Thank you all very much. And thanks to the several people who sent in questions along those lines. Well, it looks like we're into the home stretch in our evening. Thank you very much for sticking with us. If you're watching in the live stream, we're live at the Membertou Trade and Convention Center on Wednesday night, the 30th of September, ending off a little heat wave in Cape Breton with a little friction on stage here for our Mayoralty debate, sponsored by CBC Cape Breton. We're on the CBC Nova Scotia webpage, the CBC Cape Breton Facebook page. My name is Steve Sutherland. I'm your moderator. We have all 6 of your candidates for mayor in the 2020 vote before us tonight. All right, we have one final question, and this is it's a very simple question, but not an easy one to answer, which is why I like my job more than yours. It's based on a number of different questions we received from people throughout the course of soliciting questions, but really it's coming from me as your moderator, if I may. And it's about your vision. In what way is this municipality going to be different after you're in charge for the next 4 years, after people put their trust in you for the next 4 years? So tell us a little bit about your vision. How will this municipality be different? And what are the essential steps that you're going to put in place to get there? And while you ponder that, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody who submitted a question. I know there are all kinds of things we didn't get to. We didn't get to the library. We didn't get to transit. We didn't get to a whole bunch of other things. We tried to prevent a smattering of issues inspired by your questions that give you some idea of the people and the choices you have before you for October 17th. And thank you very much for spending your time with us. And thank you very much for everybody who solicited questions. Even if you didn't hear your specific question, it all went into informing the conversation we had here tonight. Also, I want to say thank you very much to the candidates. I have the utmost respect for anybody who puts his or her name on the line and his or her time and resources in investing the time like you have. And I'll tell you what else is not easy, is speaking extemporaneously in an environment like this here tonight on all this wide range of topics. So thank you all very much. My thanks to you on behalf of us and on behalf of the CBC. I want to remind you that the vote begins online for the CBRM on October 7th. We're going to be posting this all online afterwards for you to see at your convenience if you'd like to relive some of these wonderful moments. And as always, we're going to launch our first segment of the Mayoralty debate tomorrow morning on Information Morning, 92.1 FM in Sydney, or you can listen to us anytime online on the CBC Listen app. Final question for the evening. On your vision, should you be elected as mayor of the CBRM, how is this municipality going to be different at the end of the next term of your leadership, and what are the important elements that you'll engage to get us there? 1 minute from John Strasser.
It'll be more transparent, it'll be more accountable, and it will have more people involved from the community. When you're electing people to any position, and it doesn't matter whether it's a councillor or mayor, you're not always electing the smartest people. It comes down to personality, it comes down to organization. And I think people in elected offices forget that too often. They don't seek the input from the people around them, who in many cases know way more about the subject than they do. So more transparent, more accountable, and more people involved.
John Strasser, thank you very much. Cecil Clark.
Well, my hope and vision for our community is that we will build on the success we've had to date by getting through the impact of the demise of coal and steel on our community and a forced amalgamation that put unfair conditions on our municipality. We've dealt with them head on, we've taken those decisions locally, and we've made tough decisions to move forward. But now we're positioned for growth and opportunity, but at the same time we have to come through the worst pandemic we've known in our lifetime, and we have to do that by utilizing the partnerships with the federal and provincial governments, being there for our community, and being ready to re-emerge from this pandemic stronger and more able to be that leader in Atlantic Canada, building on and getting our second birth, diversifying our economy, developing our port, the tech sector, everything that kind of moves forward, that we can be the community that people look to as a place for success and prosperity.
All right, Kevin McCacker, when you think about what got you into this gig, what's your vision?
My vision is to have a cleaner, more open CBRM. There's a lot of different aspects. I actually was not planning on running in this election. I was planning on running the next election. I've had approximately 40 to 60 people come to my office and ask me to run. I've been working with a lot of people in the community, not just in the downtown area, not in the North End, but all over the community. I've been working with them. They come to me, they ask me if I would run this time. I am running this time. I plan on winning this election. I want to get in there. I want to make this city the best city possible, the best CRM we could possibly have. I want to see the foreign workers get in here, be able to get their businesses opened, be able to buy homes, be able to live comfortably. I want everybody living comfortably. The poverty rate here is crazy. I want to do everything I can to try to get a new addiction center open here, more than 50 beds, so we definitely need at least a minimum of 100 beds service here. We need more social service workers working with the police departments. They should be on the road all the time.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin McCacker. On your vision and the elements it will take to get there, Amanda McDougall.
I think very simply, it's bringing people back into the municipal decision-making process. I know Mayor Brenda in Port Hawkesbury was very successful in opening up council meetings to make sure that people are actually allowed to use their voices in chambers to the agenda of the day. We also need to make sure that we have as much openness and transparency in terms of our data. We have to make it easier for people to get the information that they want and not charge them an arm and a leg to be able to access that information. We also need to be accountable and have a list of strategies and priorities for the next 4 years of this term. We have to be able to check in on a monthly basis and say to the residents of the CBRM, okay, we're doing great in this area, maybe not so much here, so we need to pivot. This is the only way we're going to move forward, is if we collectively work together and allow people their voices back in our council chambers.
All right, thank you very much. On your vision, Archie McKinnon.
My vision is honesty. I'm going to show people on this island there is good people in politics. We're not all crooks. I want people to understand that this council is going to be involved in the community. I want all the councillors not to be the kingpin of a municipal council, but a team player. I won't be having any private boards that I'll be running, or it's going to be honesty. We're going to be involved in the community. I want all of my councillors to have private meetings in their districts to find out what the problems that people have and bring it back to council. Never mind having a meeting here once every 2 years or something like that. It'll be on a regular basis. We'll get community groups involved. We'll show them that we can make a difference here in Cape Breton, and just by getting honest people.
Thank you very much, Archie McKinnon. Chris Abbas, 1 minute on
Thank
your
you, Steve.
vision.
Well, we're not a sustainable community right now. We're slowly going bankrupt. And if we don't do something about our cost effectiveness and our efficiency in government, we're going to become, I guess, a ward of the province or something, but we won't be anymore. Now, aside from that, I have a dream, I guess, that I wanted to build a wellness center right here in the old steel plant property. And this is a huge center that's going to have a golf course, it's going to have an indoor and outdoor skating rink, it's going to have an outdoor swimming pool, there's going to be recreational facilities for kids, such as skate parks and that sort of thing. It'll be an actual wellness community where people can come together and be well. One other thing, no, excuse me, I'm done, thank you.
Okay. And the money to build a wellness facility?
Well, that's another deal entirely. You know, we've done a little basic research, and the facility that we're looking at, it would be around $70 million, which is a huge sum of money.
Okay, maybe you can pick it up in the
Sure.
next 3 minutes. So we're looking for your vision on how this municipality is going to look different when you're finished your term in the next 4 years, and the elements of that vision that you have to make happen. Starting with you, John Strasser, we're going to go for 3 minutes. Briefly, everybody. John?
I don't think we're going anywhere as a municipality unless we open the doors, if you want, to transparency and accountability. The citizens here pay the taxes, the money that allows the government to function. It's got to be more accountable. It's got to be more transparent, and we have to ensure that the citizens that are part of the CBRM know exactly where the administration is taking them in a priority.
And briefly, by what mechanism that isn't there now?
If you were to ask me to name the top 5 priorities for this municipality, I wouldn't be able to do them.
All right, Chris Abbas, then Cecil Clark. Chris, on your
Well, I
vision.
just wanted to address where possibly the $70 million could come from to build a wellness center such as this. In 2017, 2018, Casino Nova Scotia cut a check to the provincial government for $146 million. That was their cut of the gambling money. Now, 25% of that, which would be our casino right here, Casino Nova Scotia and Sydney, there's only 2 of them, Halifax and Nova Scotia and Sydney, would have to be responsible for at least a quarter of that revenue. And that would be around $36 million. If we could have 2 years of that revenue, we could turn our province, or our,
Cecil Clark,
our
then Amanda
island around.
McDougall.
Well, clearly, I'm asking the public to re-elect me as their mayor, but I want to take the ideas and energy of what's going to be a new council. And there's lots of ideas and lots of candidates talking during this campaign, and take my experience and help guide them forward and actually get back to the table, and that our charter becomes something real and functioning for our community to deal with some of those systemic challenges we faced, and putting it into action and having all of council get this. The province is given the green light, so it's time for council to go.
All right, we're going to go with Amanda. Kevin, finish with Archie. Amanda?
So I think one of the most important things is that we do set realistic goals. So making sure that there's more access to green spaces, more thought around tax incentives for ensuring seniors stay in their homes. A $70 million wellness center is a wonderful idea, but if we're not able to even secure $34 million to get a new library that we so desperately need in terms of social infrastructure, I think we need to be realistic.
All right, Kevin?
Okay, first point I want to make, everything here, there's nothing government funded. Everything we're doing here is taxpayer funded. It's all taxpayer funded, no matter what way you look at it. Mr. Clark made a comment before about him being gay or Amanda being a woman. That makes no difference. A person's sexual orientation, their gender, makes no difference. A person is a person. They can do their job. They can do their job. People are people.
All right, last word to you, Archie, very briefly. We're out of time.
We need a mayor and council like you did 25 years ago when I sat on council. We had a mayor and councilors involved in the community, holding community meetings and being proud, and people being proud of the people that they represented.
Thank you very much. That ends discussion on that question. And that also ends our live stream for tonight and CBC's mayoralty debate for 2020. Don't forget, voting starts on October 7th. You have to make your decision by October 17th. Once again, thanks very much to Amanda McDougall, Archie McKinnon, Chris Abbas, John Strasser, Cecil Clark, and Kevin McEachern for putting your name on the ballot and for being available for us here tonight. My name is Steve Sutherland with CBC Radio in Cape Breton. Hope you have a lovely evening.